What's good? It's Woog. We are wrapping up 2024, and to close out the year, I wanted to get into not only the boxing awards, knockout of the year, fight of the year, and so forth, but I also wanted to give you my top 10 pound for pound. I'm going to extend it to, the top 15. So I'll give you my 11 through 15 as well. But I also wanted to just kind of high level talk about some of the biggest stories in boxing and just what the biggest happenings, like what is the biggest 2024 takeaway as we get into 2025. What are the biggest things to reflect on and then to look out for going forward? So I want to cover a couple of those things in this video, and then at the top of 2025, I'm talking either January 1st or January 2nd, I want to do a live chat to actually discuss kind of high level the state of play in boxing, from the boxing business to promotions. Where is Top Rank going to go? Like, are they going to continue on ESPN? And also on that live chat, I want to break down, kind of go division by division a little bit and kind of give in a nutshell, synopsis of the divisions in terms of who the champs are and who the major players are and some of the things that I'm looking for in 2025 in those divisions. Again, I want to cover that in the live chat. So let me know whether you would prefer for me to hold that live chat on the 1st of January or on the 2nd. Let me know kind of what day and then what time of the day works best to kind of do this high level, what is the state of boxing live chat with y'all. But again, in this video, I'm going to cover the boxing awards for 2024 and give you my pound for pound top 15. But before that, let's just go with, it's not even the elephant in the room anymore. It's the biggest thing happening in boxing. There were a couple things that I was thinking about considering when I was thinking, what's the biggest story of 2024? A couple other big stories were, Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia, that whole saga, and the strangeness in people's support for Ryan Garcia as he kind of became a disgraced fighter, testing positive after beating the brakes off of Devin Haney. And that was also one of the upsets of the year, which you would then have to roll back because the decision was overturned. But yeah, story-wise, and also just what the reputation of Devin Haney has been with the public and the inexplicable PR hit that Devin Haney has taken over the past year. Again, it was weird because I saw him as fighting pretty bravely, even after getting dropped 3 times to even finish that fight. So not only was he giving up the weight, which yes, he did sign up for, but then Ryan Garcia tests positive for PEDs and Devin Haney ends up taking the PR hit with much of the boxing community. It was just kind of weird, and it's bizarre, and it still is bizarre. And neither Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia is obviously suspended, but neither has fought since. So it's going to be interesting to see how their careers shape up in 2025. So that was a big story. And then obviously the heavyweight champion, the undisputed heavyweight champion, finally being crowned earlier this year in Alexander Usyk in the first of 2 Usyk versus Fury fights. So that was a major happening. As was Daniel DuBois steamrolling Anthony Joshua. But by far, the biggest story in all of boxing has been the takeover. Largely, let's call it what it is. It's largely a takeover of the sport of boxing by Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh Season. Almost all of the biggest fights this year were courtesy of Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh Season. All the biggest cards, basically everything other than a Canelo Alvarez card or a Gervonta Tank Davis card or a Jake Paul card. Everything else damn near of true significance. Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia was early in the year and that wasn't Riyadh Season, but most of the biggest fights have been Turki Al-Sheikh, Riyadh Season, even as they work with different promoters. And this upcoming Better Be It versus Bivol 2 fight card, it also includes PBC, which was pretty much the last major promoter that has not yet worked with Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh Season. So yeah, it's just been crazy. And is it good in the immediate future for the sport? Yes, it's giving us a lot of the best fights in boxing. I'm convinced that Better Be It versus Bivol probably would not have happened had it not been for Turki Al-Sheikh. There's so many different fights that we've been getting courtesy of Riyadh Season. So in that short term, yes, it's been phenomenal for boxing. But in terms of the long-term health, I don't know yet what it means. And that's largely because I don't know yet what a sustainable boxing business model is supposed to look like. Is it supposed to be a scaled down mom and pop shop style? Maybe something like what Golden Boy's got, going on, or what Top Rank would have going on if you took away like 2 or 3 of their highest profile fighters. Like if the biggest fighters they had were like Rafael Espinoza level, and the type of money that those level fighters would be asking for rather than like a Devin Haney or some of the higher ticketed fighters, right? Is that the sustainable model for boxing outside of like the superstar sphere, or even the star, just below the superstar, but the star boxing famous tier? I'm not sure how healthy the overall landscape of the sport is, because what if Turki Al-Sheikh, I mean, because look, here's the thing, he's putting all this money into it, paying all these fighters, all of these like extravagant events with all this, you know, multimedia, all of this that's going into it. What monetarily, aside from building up Riyadh, Saudi Arabia as a destination, right? What else monetarily are they gaining? Like per event, are they profiting? I don't think that they are. Just knowing what these fighters are costing and what Turkey is likely paying them, how they're not making up for it at the gate or in pay-per-view sales. So maybe tourism is what they're going for. Like if people descend upon an event and then you start enriching the economy of the surrounding area, the city, right? If that is the play, then okay, maybe you've got, you know, what my boy kind of considered a UFC model, where basically the city plays host and covers a lot of the expenses, and in turn the city benefits from the bustling economy around the event. Maybe if you had something like that, it's a sustainable model. But I mean, if we're talking like just profit loss, event by event, in paying the fighters and putting this much money up for the event, if it wasn't for like the blank check that Turkey is able to write, no other promoter could cover this type of event. Like you would have to be just a multi-billionaire and not have to care about losing money to be able to put some of these things on, I'm imagining. I mean, otherwise we would have been getting more of these fights. But if you look at what these other promoters are doing outside of Riyadh season, it has been kind of scaled down. If you look at the you know, I mean, Top Ranks has some good ones. They recently had Navarrete versus Valdez too, that type of a card. But I mean, largely you're getting like regional good fighters, like on Matchroom, a lot of, you know, good European fighters who haven't, you know, broken out on the world stage yet. They're not like world-class elite fighters, or at least haven't proven to be yet. Like I'd expect like you know, Dalton Smith's about to fight. Okay, so that level of fighter is what you're going to largely get outside of Riyadh season. That's at least how I'm picturing this. But yeah, make no mistake, the takeover, at least in the short term, the takeover of boxing, courtesy of Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh season, is the story of 2024. We saw it start to happen in 2023. It just, you know, compounded like tenfold in 2024. I mean, I went to Terrence Crawford versus Israel Madrimov in Los Angeles. I went to that one and I spent $80 in parking at that event. So yeah, let me know what you think of Turkey's presence in boxing. What is this going to look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Like, what is boxing? What will boxing look like in the wake of Turkey? Shall they pull out of boxing? And if he plans on staying, like he just bought Ring Magazine, so it doesn't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon. He took over Michael Benson's X account. You know, if you go to Michael Benson, the biggest newsbreaker in boxing's Twitter/X account, it reroutes to Ring TV. And if you check for the Ring Magazine website, it's currently down under construction, and it's going to, I mean, the launch was supposed to be in December now, but now it's going to be in January. So I'm curious to see if they're going to do the same kind of rankings, because I always looked at Ring as being the most credible ranking system, division by division. Like, yes, you do have sanctioning bodies that issue out the official belts, but if you want to look at who the top 10 fighters are in any division, I was looking at Ring's website to kind of like get an idea. No, it wasn't perfect, but it's better than everything else I've seen. It's better than any of the networks like top 10 rankings, whether you were getting it, you know, like the ESPN top rank. Not to say that those are necessarily bad, but I just looked at Ring as being consistently the most like, yeah, that kind of ranking makes sense. Ring usually has it down pat, including the belt that they issue out. They'll usually give somebody the Ring belt if they've like at least unified titles or somehow established themselves as being the true best in the division. These other sanctioning bodies are mostly like, okay, who's fighting in this part of the ecosystem or that part of the ecosystem? So you can't really go with sanctioning bodies. So Turkey's taking that over. What that means for boxing, I mean, I hope that there's not a conflict of interest. There didn't appear to be when Ring was owned by Golden Boy. I thought that they seemed like they were operating as a independent journalist, so to speak. So I hope it stays that way under the stewardship of Turki, or I should say ownership of Turki Al-Sheikh. But without further ado, let's get into the pound for pound top 10 in the sport as it stands. I've got Alexander Usyk at number 1. We just saw what he did, beating Tyson Fury in back-to-back fights, stopped Daniel DuBois just before that. Right now, Usyk, former undisputed cruiserweight champ, now, former undisputed heavyweight champ. IBF took the belt and did what they did with it. Daniel DuBois is the IBF champ, but Usyk's beating him too. Usyk's got the other 3 belts. Usyk's the man. I've got Terence Crawford still at number 2. He fought once this year against Israel Madrimov. Close fight at 154. That's the 4th division that Crawford's held the title. So yeah, Crawford number 2. Naoya Inoue at number 3. Yes, he is still steamrolling the competition, but I mean, the level, look, he's fought Stephen Fulton, stopped him. He's beaten Nonito Donaire twice. He stopped Luis Neri earlier this year. He's stopped, Marlon Tapales, who beat MJ Akhmadaliev. So Naoya Inoue is, distancing himself from the pack at 122 now. So for anybody who has him above Terence Crawford, I'm not going to argue too hard with that. I won't. The reason I have Crawford above Inoue right now is just because I think that it seems like the level of competition, quite frankly, that Terence Crawford has had to deal with in his last 3 to 4 fights has been stronger than Naoya Inoue's. But I get it if you think that Stephen Fulton and Luis Neri are better than Errol Spence and Israel Madrimov. Look, if that's what you think, I'm not going to argue too hard with it. Again, Naoya Inoue is killing the game. I just have Crawford at 2, Inoue at number 3. Artur Beterbiev at number 4, Bivol at number 5. I personally thought that Bivol beat Beterbiev, but the decision is the decision. Beterbiev is the undisputed champion, but if you're going to have Beterbiev at 4, you've got to have Bivol right there. So I've got them back to back. Canelo at number 6. No, he's not fighting. He didn't fight David Benavidez, still hasn't, and he's really not fighting the fights that anybody really wants to see. Like Jaime Munguia, pretty good fighter. Canelo fought him. A dangerous opponent. If anybody not named Canelo spent their 2024 beating Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, people would be praising them. But because it's Canelo, we have higher expectations. And, but at the end of the day, he did beat Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga. So he's still sticking around at number 6. I would like for him to fight some interesting, difficult opponents in 2025, but we'll see what we get. I wouldn't be mad at a Terence Crawford versus Canelo or Canelo versus Crawford fight either. If that's where he goes with it, it's a super fight. It's intriguing. After seeing how Crawford looked against Madrimov, that gives me bigger reservation about him fighting Canelo, but I'm still down for it. If anybody is worthy of testing themselves in a inexplicable, what the hell are you doing kind of way, like if Mikey Garcia could try to do it, if Amir Khan could try to do it, against Canelo, you had Guillermo Rigondeaux going up to fight Vasily Lomachenko, you had Kell Brook fighting Triple G. If they could do it, I would like to see Terence Crawford see what he could do against Canelo. So Canelo 6, Bam Rodriguez number 7. He is 2024 might have been the year where he starts encroaching upon Hall of Fame territory. That's what Bam Rodriguez 2024 looked like. Tank Davis is my number 8. No, he's not fighting the fights that we want him to see engaged in the most, but he's just taking people's heads off when he does fight, whoever he fights, left and right. Tank Davis has just been, the talent just jumps off the screen. Can anybody deny that? The thing that's so frustrating is that he's so damn good, and we would probably favor him against all these people, or the few fighters that we really, really want to see him fight against. We would probably, I would think, favor Tank Davis. Even if he's getting outboxed for the first couple of rounds, if Shakur Stevenson wins 3 out of the first 5, are you really that comfortable that Shakur Stevenson's going to be okay on the back half of the fight? Tank Davis just has to be right once, right? So Tank Davis is number 8. He could very easily, if he fought and beat 1 or 2 of the people that we really want to see him in there with, and if they get the Tank Davis versus Vasily Lomachenko fight together eventually, well, it would have to be soon, and we're unsure about Lomachenko's future, but yeah, if Tank Davis like beat Lomachenko, he could very easily just elevate to the top 5. No problem. He's that damn talented. I've got Shakur Stevenson at number 9. Yes, he's been looking, he's been giving some uninspiring performances. That would be I guess a diplomatic way of putting it. Others would just say flat out boring. I mean, Edwin De Los Santos, there's no arguing against the boringness of that fight. But Shakur Stevenson said he had a hand injury, but then, he beat a guy who gave Frank Martin some difficulty, right? In Shakur Stevenson's last fight, but people wanted to see a stoppage. He didn't stop the guy, but we don't know how durable the guy is, But yeah, a lot of people are kind of standing, watching Shakur Stevenson with arms folded, like, all right, let's see what you got. So Shakur Stevenson, number 9, and then I've got Tyson Fury still at number 10. He was, he lost 2 very, very close fights to the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the sport. So he can't fall too damn far. I had him like at number 6, 7-ish before that. So yeah, Tyson Fury at number 10. And then my 11 through 15 are as follows. Teofimo Lopez at 11. David Benavidez 12, Jai Opataya 13, Devin Haney, yes, Devin Haney, number 14, and then Junto Nakatani at number 15. And if you want to know, 16, Lomachenko, 17 for me, Zurdo Ramirez, Taraji, number 18, Emmanuel Navarrete, 19. I've thought less about this little section right here. Sebastian Fundora, I currently have at 20, although 154 really needs to sort itself out. There are a lot of really good fighters at 154, probably the best non-heavyweight division in the sport right now. So take with a grain of salt that 16 through 20, ranking. I put a lot more thought into the 1 through 15. So let's switch gears once again and let's get into some of these awards. Trainer of the Year. There wasn't a trainer that just was an obvious pick. Like some years you have a trainer who trains 2 fighters who became world champion, or 2 fighters who just did monumental things and had monster years. And it's like, okay, this one's kind of easy. Like Freddie Roach gets this one, or, Derek James or Eddie Reynoso gets it. There's certain years where it's very evident who the trainer of the year should be. You have to dig a little bit this year because of those reasons. But Robert Garcia, his record this year, and you could just scour the internet and it's not hard to find this particular stat, but 70 wins and 7 losses in 2024, including 3 world titles for Robert Garcia and his fighters. 70 and 7 was his 2024 record, and he's Bam Rodriguez's trainer. And Virgil Ortiz got the nod over Bohachuk and won 2 other fights this year. So yeah, I would say Robert Garcia is the trainer of the year for 2024. Let me know if you disagree with that one, because I felt less sure about that one than I did about some of these easier picks. Well, easier for me picks this year. Let me know what you think. But upset of the year. This one, to me, was one of the easier ones. Some considerations were Daniel Dubois knocking Anthony Joshua out. I mean, Daniel Dubois was a considerable underdog. He was also an underdog when he stopped Filip Ergovic. So this was, there's always the revisionist history, and over time you forget how much a moment mattered because of what the reputations and the opinions were going into a fight. I say this all the time. You have to go back and look at what the odds were on some of these fights, because you'll be like, oh yeah, the idea that Usyk beats Anthony Joshua, duh, everybody knows that. Well, everybody didn't know that going into Joshua versus Usyk 1. Joshua was a substantial favorite. It wasn't until we saw them in the ring together for 24 rounds that you got, yeah, Usyk's the better fighter. And this happens all the time. You get boogeyman, if Boots Ennis, think about what his reputation was a year ago versus him struggling in his latest fight. So you get recency bias, you get forgetting history and forgetting the context on some of these fights. All that to say, just don't forget that Daniel Dubois was a big underdog against Anthony Joshua and Filip Ergovic this year, and he stopped them both. Martin Bakole stopping Jared Anderson. I didn't think Martin Bakole should have been such a significant underdog, but he was, and he stopped Jared Anderson. Ryan Garcia defeating Devin Haney. Now, that one was overturned, so I can't actually consider it, but I thought that I would mention it because it would be one of the upsets that I would consider. Again, yeah, we saw the blinding hand speed and power, and we saw Devin Haney's inability to take those shots largely, and it looked like, yeah, if they were to run it back, who would you favor between the two? Would you still favor Devin Haney? Well, think about what a reputation shift that was for both of them before it turned out that Ryan Garcia was PEDing for that fight. So I'm still not sure what to make of, you can't look at that fight in a vacuum, even though the damage that was done to Haney, that can't be reversed. he suffered those punches, and no amount of overturning decisions is going to erase that, unfortunately. But yeah, that would have been another one of those that I had for consideration. Murtazaliev stopping Tim Tszyu was one of my biggest upsets. Like, this was supposed to be, yeah, Tim Tszyu's fighting somebody who's got a belt but hasn't like proven themselves to be like a real champion. Like, the way that they got it was beating Jack Culcay, and that's no disrespect to Jack Culcay, but like, most people didn't think there were a couple people I saw saying, hey, don't sleep on Murtazaliev, but for the most part, we thought Tim Tszyu was going to handle business and then set his sights on however he was going to try to approach becoming the top dog once again at 154. Because of the way that Tim Tszyu lost to Fundora with the cut, many of us thought that Tim Tszyu was still the top dog, or at least top 2-3 in the division. Now, after seeing him get stopped by Murtazaliev, who the hell knows? But yeah, that would have been one of the ones for consideration. But the winner, far and away, is Bruno Saras knocking Jaime Munguia out just a couple of weeks ago in Tijuana, Mexico. This was supposed to be a meaningless fight. Like, I didn't even do a preview. I didn't do a preview on Jaime Munguia versus Bruno Saras. This was supposed to be a homecoming victory lap for Jaime Munguia while he gets his, his affairs in 2025 in order. And Bruno Saras, unknown to most of us, knocks Jaime Munguia out in the 6th round. Like, damn. Like, that's why I wait on a lot of these lists. Like, you want to start getting your thoughts together early, but something in December could happen, like Bruno Saras knocking Jaime Munguia out. So there you go. Upset of the year. Now let's move to knockout of the year. Look, this might sound blasphemous. My pick for this one might, earn the ire and the wrath of many of y'all, but this is just where I'm going with it. These are the ones I was considering. Zhilei Zhang knocking Deontay Wilder out. Daniel Dubois knocking Anthony Joshua out. Gervonta Tank Davis knocking Frank Martin out. Anthony Joshua knocking Francis Ngannou out. Bruno Saras knocking Jaime Munguia out. Angelo Leo knocking Luis Alberto Lopez out in the 10th round to become one of the belt holders at 126. Terrence Williams knocking Ariel Sosa out in the 1st round. This one's like a lower level fight, as is Ikao Essuman knocking Owen Cooper out in the 10th round. Devastating knockouts, by the way. Iglesias knocking Shevchenko out in the 1st round. And then Lucas Body knocking H2O, Ashton Sylvie, out cold. And that was on the Jake Paul undercard 2 fights ago for Jake Paul. So that would be the fight against Mike Perry, I believe. What's funny about that one is I was jogging around here, jogging a few miles, and as I was wrapping it up, I was coming back this way on, if you're familiar with Long Beach, Ocean Boulevard, towards like downtown-ish Long Beach. Alamitos Beach is what they call it. But I saw somebody outside on one of the lawns as I'm running down Ocean, and then I see the back of their jacket. This is like sometime in the morning, like 9-10 o'clock a.m. And I see the back of their jacket and it says MVP Promotions, and it was a brother, right? So I knew it wasn't Jake Paul. And so I stop and I'm like, hey, what's up, man? You down with MVP? You watch a lot of boxing? I'm a big boxing fan. I have a boxing channel, and I'm like, also huffing and puffing because I'm kind of out of breath. And he's like, yeah, man. I'm like, so you're gonna go to that Jake Paul fight this weekend? Because it was on this same fight week. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, so you cool with Jake? Like, who you know? And I guess he was cousins with Ashton Sylvie, H2O. So to that brother I met on Ocean Boulevard, I sincerely hope your cousin's well. That was a vicious knockout. One of the knockouts of the year. And I've seen some lists have Body's knockout over H2O as the knockout of the year. But the one that I'm going with is actually Anthony Joshua knocking Francis Ngannou out. And the reason I said blasphemous, or that it might sound blasphemous, is because Francis Ngannou isn't a boxer by trade. I still don't know what to make of Tyson Fury versus Ngannou. That was just weird to me. I mean, I've got different theories and, just technique wise, why Fury wasn't able to really assert dominance and reassert control at any time during that fight. But Francis Ngannou wasn't a pro boxer. But if you look at the odds in that fight, they weren't as lopsided as they should have been. Like, if they were to rematch Anthony Joshua and Ngannou, you might get Anthony Joshua as like a 4-1, even 6-1 favorite. It wasn't the case going into the first fight. Joshua wasn't even, I don't think he was even a 3-1 favorite, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was like a -240, -260, something like that. So yes, again, revisionist history. After we saw Joshua just totally knock Ngannou out, it was the 3rd knockdown of the fight, but the 3rd one put his lights out. once we saw that, yeah, we reshape our opinion. But just remember when you were watching that fight, how shocking that felt, and just the viciousness. Just when Ngannou got dropped the second time, he was basically standing up on cinder blocks. Like, he couldn't move. It looked like he had no more legs. He was just kind of standing there waiting for Joshua to approach him. Joshua looks down, does the same feint that he was doing to get that second knockdown, and I think the first knockdown, but looks down, puts everything into the show closer right hand, and he just catches all of Ngannou. And again, like they could have stopped the fight after the second knockdown. He didn't need to take that last punch. But Anthony Joshua, like, he just infinity stoned Francis Ngannou with that third brutal knockdown, and again knocked him out cold. Ngannou fell back over his leg. It was just one of those shocking things. And there are a lot of channels that I like that have like their live reactions of that moment. Sometimes just to get a good laugh, you know, I'll just flip to that part, just what it was like, what their reaction was like when Ngannou's getting knocked out. Like, a couple of them were Boxing Waves live reaction of that moment. Another one is Luke Thomas from Morning Combat, his live reaction to that moment. It was just shocking. So yeah, even though Francis Ngannou isn't a boxer by trade, because Ngannou had that performance against Tyson Fury, like, if this, I might not have picked it if Ngannou didn't establish some credibility, at least some credibility, by getting in there and fighting that fight that he had, a super even fight, dropping the Gypsy King in the third round, and winning multiple other rounds. If Ngannou hadn't had that performance, I don't think that I would have thought as much of Anthony Joshua knocking Francis Ngannou out. So, you know, some of this might just be a byproduct of Tyson Fury's underperformance, which then inflated our opinion of Ngannou going into the Joshua fight. But it was what it was, and Joshua did what he did. So that's my knockout of the year. No, it wasn't a title win knockout like Angelo Leo had over Luis Alberto Lopez, but it was heavyweights, big heavyweights with nuclear punches, and it was just one of those, hey, everybody be quiet, is he okay? Types of moments. Now for the performance of the year. This is the one where it's like the person just came in, showed out, they just had this unbelievable, just a performance where it's like, the sky's the limit in terms of my opinion of this person because of how they just handled business in the ring. That's what performance of the year is about for me. For instance, after Terrence Crawford did what he did against Errol Spence last year, that made it easy for me to pick performance of the year. A one-sided beatdown and stoppage over Errol Spence. Yeah, Terrence Crawford, I thought, ran away with that one. But this year's performance of the year involved a little bit more parity. There were a lot of contenders for me. Usyk defeating Fury in the first fight. You could also include him beating Fury by a bigger margin in the second fight. Ryan Garcia defeating Devin Haney overturned, so we can't actually consider that, but I just wanted to mention it. Daniel DuBois first steamrolling, then knocking Anthony Joshua out. He beat him up from almost the opening bell and just continued to dominate until he finally stopped him in the fifth. Bam Rodriguez destruction over Juan Estrada. Yeah, that KO, that's up there for me. Keyshawn Davis's TKO over Gustavo Lemos in the second round. Navarrete's KO over Oscar Valdez. Gal Yafai just dominating and stopping Sonny Edwards in a couple rounds. It wasn't that long of a fight. Martin Bakole knocking Jared Anderson out. Lomachenko stopping George Kambosos, becoming the first to do so. William Zepeda, what he did with Maxie Hughes, to me, that was one of the performances of the year. Yeah, that was this year. It was far back though. It was in March, so it's easy to forget that one. But for me, it came down to Usyk being the first person to beat the Gypsy King, to become undisputed heavyweight champion. And then Bam Rodriguez dominating and destroying possible future Hall of Famer Juan Estrada, stopping him in the seventh. And then Daniel DuBois steamrolling Anthony Joshua, again, almost from the opening bell onward before knocking him out in the fifth round. And I'm really torn between Usyk defeating Tyson Fury the first time, with that close decision because of the way that he had to rally back. And I'm still considering it. When I turned this camera on to start this video, I was actually going to switch and go with Daniel DuBois destroying Anthony Joshua, just because I can't get that feeling of watching how that went down. I can't get that out of my head. But, Usyk beat the Gypsy King at the end of the day. And, the weight and the magnitude of that fight. Yes, I mean, AJ versus DuBois was also a huge magnitude, but this was the battle for undisputed, and it was looking like, just like, you know, for moments kind of in the 5th round in the second fight, but more so in the first fight when Tyson Fury captured momentum in the rounds 3 through 6. It was really looking bleak for Usyk by round 5 and round 6. And then the way that Usyk started to turn it around in the 7th, really turned it around in the 8th, and then almost stopped Fury in the 9th. Just that swing of momentum after Fury looked like he had swung it in his favor and wasn't gonna relent. Usyk, I've got to go with Usyk's performance over Tyson Fury, just like the momentousness and the importance of that fight, and then followed by that performance. Again, I was this close to going with Daniel Dubois doing what he did to AJ, but I'm going to actually go with Usyk's victory over Tyson Fury in Fury versus Usyk 1 to become undisputed champion. That's performance of the year for me, which makes the next category easy to judge as well. Fight of the year. It's Fury versus Usyk 1. It's Fury versus Usyk 1. There were some other fights that I considered for a moment. Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano 2. Hell of a fight. Unfortunate cut, but I mean, they were scrapping. Raymond Ford versus Kolmatov. Remember that one? I had that on my list. Brian Norman versus Giovanni Santillan. I had that one. Brian Norman ended up stopping Santillan. Raymond Ford ended up stopping Kolmatov late in that fight. William Zepeda versus Tevin Farmer. That was a sneaky good fight. Luis Alberto Lopez versus Angelo Leo. Again, the challenger knocked the champ out late in that fight after pretty much fighting on even terms, if not beating Luis Alberto Lopez by that point. But Luis Alberto Lopez was throwing his awkward punches, landing a lot of them, and just, it turned into a very action-packed fight that resulted in a devastating knockout. And then again, Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia, which was overturned, but the fight was still a great fight. Can't really consider it because the whole fight just has this big old asterisk on it, but I just, again, wanted to mention it. Fight of the year, though, it's a no-brainer. It's Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk. Usyk's first win over Tyson Fury. Just the ebb and flow. The fact that it was a huge, important fight, and often when we get fights that important, they don't end up living up to the moment. Like, the fact that Errol Spence, again, just got decimated by Terrence Crawford. That wasn't what we were expecting to see. We thought we were going to see this very evenly matched. Most of us did. And we didn't get that. And there are a lot of cases where either the fight's a little bit boring, just not action packed enough. Like Beterbiev versus Bivol was a really good fight. It wasn't a great fight. It was an interesting, very tactical, they both had to dig so deep to do what they did against each other. They are both such tremendous fighters, but the fight just didn't jump off the screen. And the ebbs and flows were more subtle, and they were within a round. There would be somebody who's taking control over the next 30 seconds, and it looks like the other person's coming on a little bit. But with Fury versus Usyk 1, the ebbs and flows were so dramatic. It was Usyk edging the first 2 rounds and Fury capturing the 3rd through 6th, and then Usyk evening things out a little bit in the 7th and then taking over in the 8th and 9th and 10th. And the way that he did it was so dramatic. Again, yeah, this was, the actual fight exceeded the moment. It didn't just meet the moment, it exceeded the moment. So that's why I've got Fury versus Usyk 1, fight of the year. And then fighter of the year, this one is a no-brainer as well. It's Alexander Usyk. The guy beat Tyson Fury twice in 2024. I was gonna wait till this, till that rematch before I come out with the fight of the year, because the other 2 people I was really considering were Bam Rodriguez and then Daniel Dubois, actually. I know that he beat Gerald Miller towards the end or near the end of 2023, but you beat Filip Ergovic and then Anthony Joshua, stopping them both in 2024. Daniel Dubois, if Usyk versus Fury 2 became if it resulted in a draw, maybe Daniel Dubois is fighter of the year. But then you've got Bam Rodriguez, who again, I was really considering. Other fighters, of note, Artur Beterbiev, Canelo, Hamza Shiraz. Look at the 3 fights and the opponents: Ammo Williams, Tyler Denny, stopping Liam Williams in the first round, in the first of those 3 fights. So he went from stopping Liam Williams in the first to stopping Ammo Williams. It was prospect versus prospect on that Queensberry versus Matchroom 5-on-5, and Hamza Shiraz stopped Ammo Williams, and then he stops the guy who beat Felix Cash. Tyler Denny stops him early. Yeah, he's not fighter of the year, but I thought that he's, keep your eye on Hamza Shiraz. I can't wait to see him fight Carlos Adames. And then you've got Jack Catterall, who, if you were to tell me 2 years ago that Jack Catterall was about to officially beat Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis. Like, I know that we had seen him in a fight where we thought, most of us thought that he beat Josh Taylor, but since then he, beat Jorge Linares, but 2024 beat Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis, who were like the class of the division just a couple years ago. So yeah, Jack Catterall, like, he's a real player. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight Arnold Barboza, who himself is coming off a win against one of the class of the division a couple years ago, Jose Ramirez. And then the other fighters of note were Zordo Ramirez, Naoya Inoue, Jai Opataya, and then I also put Virgil Ortiz, even though a lot of people thought Bo Hachuk beat Ortiz. But again, it's all immaterial. The fighter of the year, hands down, 2024, Alexander Usyk. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on all of these, awards: fighter of the year, fight of the year, performance of the year, knockout of the year, upset of the year, trainer of the year. And I mean, you could throw in robbery of the year. I know that there was just a big robbery in Thailand like a week ago or something, or a few days ago. But yeah, also, if you are so inclined, give me your pound for pound top 10 fighters in the sport right now. And again, I'm looking to do a live chat on like the 1st or 2nd of the year. If I do it on the 2nd, I'll do it more in the evening, because I know most people are going to be working on the 2nd. But if I do it on the 1st, I might do it earlier in the day. Let me know what your preferred time would be, and I'll try to go based according to some of that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments. I hope you join us for the upcoming live chat. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Happy New Year.